how do you find is the most effective way for those leaders to kind of act as glue without being in the operational day-to-day of things? Like, how do they maintain their position leading forwards whilst also being here and being mindful, being aware of what's going on behind them?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you know about me, Georgia, is that I like music, right?
You do.
I play guitar, and have done it for quite a while. I wouldn't say that I'm really good, but I'm committed. But to use a musical analogy, you take a big orchestra, and so maybe the CEO of a large corporation is like somebody that's the conductor of an orchestra, right? And so what the conductor does is he listens to the music, or she, they listen to the music, and she sees maybe we need a little more volume from the brass, and maybe the string needs to back off a little bit. And so the conductor is basically listening to all this and adjusting it, bringing more into it, taking less out of it. Where things really go crazy, and nobody would ever think a conductor is good, that basically puts down their baton or whatever and walks over and grabs an instrument out of somebody's hand and tells them how to play it. That would just never happen. But that's what CEOs of maybe large organizations tend to do. Well, that scales. So maybe, if you're a solo artist, maybe not so much, but if you're playing with somebody else, and there's 2 or 3 of you, and it's a small musical group, one person may be leading, one person may be playing rhythm, the other person's playing lead, and maybe somebody's doing vocals and harmony if you got 1 or 2 or 3 people, but nobody stops and tells the other person what to do and grabs their instrument and says, hey, you know what, if you would play lead this way, it would be a lot better and it'd make my song seem a lot different. So even in a small organization, where you're an entrepreneur and you've moved, an entrepreneur maybe is moving from a solo artist to, a collaborative situation where it's a trio or a duet or more. It's still that same analogy. Your people need the freedom to play their instrument, and you're coaching them and bringing out what you need, but you don't grab the instrument from them. And, maybe that's a way to do that, is to kind of think of that musical analogy of how that would just totally blow the song if somebody stopped and said, hey, wait a minute, So I would maybe offer that as a suggestion, but also I think it's really important in small organizations because there is so much transparency and, of what's going on. Is the leader needs to really understand what motivates them, what's been their leadership experience. And I talk about this idea of a leadership point of view. I wish it was my idea. It's not, it's Ken Blanchard's, but it's a great idea. It's really writing your story as a leader. Why do you want to lead? How long have you, what is your desire to lead? What has been your creative process to get there? Who have been your major influences in your life? What are your values? What does it look like when you're living your values? Because if you have values and your actions don't line up, that could be a problem right away. But you go through this process of developing your leadership point of view, and you really understand it, internalize it, and then you share that with your people. Now, in a small organization, that's easy to do because we're very close. We work together all the time. And it's even more important to do that because people need to know where you're coming from, why you're doing what you're doing, so you can invite them, to be part of that. But also, it's even more important that you actually live the walk of your talk, because people see inconsistency in leader. When a leader says yes, but they really mean no. That's pretty hard to do. That I've had to practice.
That's impressive coordination.
Yeah, but that just creates so much cognitive dissonance in people that it increases their stress level and their uncomfort level. And so leaders need to be very consistent in their thoughts, in their words, in their actions, and have alignment. And hopefully that consistency in the model of being a leader worth following.